District 8 Community Roundtable for organizing this great event. For those of you who haven't heard of SPURS, the San Francisco Bay Area Policy and Urban Research Association, check us out. And for those of you who are curious, I'm asking the same set of questions that were asked in the previous forum with the Assembly candidates. So this is your opportunity to clap for our two speakers, Senator Jim Beall and Assemblywoman Nora Campos. And then we'll hold our applause until the end. So I want to invite first Senator Beall to start with an opening statement of 2 minutes, and then Assemblywoman Campos.
Hi everybody, Jim Bell's my name. It's pronounced Bell. A lot of people say Beall. Have you heard that? Yeah, I know. I'm a native San Josean who grew up in San Jose with my 9 brothers and sisters, and my parents in the Cambrian area of San Jose, and I represent the 15th Senate District right now for the last 4 years. Senators can serve a total of 2 terms, so I'm running for the 2nd term of my possible 2-year term, so that's what I'm doing. I'm asking you for your vote, and I hope I can explain over the evening why you should vote for me. My goals in what I've done with myself in my life is to dedicate my life to public service. I decided to do that as a young person and got involved in community affairs, much like this organization, and then became a member of the City Council, the County Supervisors, and the State Assembly, and now the State Senate. My lifetime service has been focused on social justice and looking at the issues of transportation, where I become quite a proficient expert. Now I'm the chair of the Senate Transportation and Housing Committee, working on those problems such as mental health, foster youth, programs with kids that have special needs, and developmental disabilities. I have received the League of Cities Legislator of the Year award last year, for example, in my work on transportation. I think that my goals for the next 4 years for our area is to bring home the bacon, even though I'm a vegetarian. I think that getting grants for BART to San Jose, the transit projects, and education projects are my priority. I hope I can serve you as a legislator, and thank you for your attention this late evening. Thank you.
Good evening. It is so great to be here with all of you. My name is Nora Campos, and I have served you for the past 6 years in the State Assembly. And I also served on the City Council for the past 10 years before that. And I am running because I believe that I have the ability to take our area to the next level. I will continue to be bold, make sure that we hold Sacramento accountable so that the resources that tend to go to other parts of the states, because there's not equity there, are coming to our community. As I move forward, I will make sure that as we look at transportation money, that we're getting our fair share, and that not most of the money is going to Sacramento and to Southern California, but that we're getting our fair share, that we're building an infrastructure that's completed, that we're making sure that the Valley Transportation Authority is using their dollars wisely to complete our public transportation, to make sure that BART is completed, and also to make sure that we have a walkable community and that it's a community that serves all of the community. One of the things I love about living in this valley is there's no one majority ethnicity. That is what California is about. We live in a great state, and the reality is that where we come from, it is a community that is thriving. I want to make sure that education continues to be a top priority, K through 12. I'm a mother of an 8-year-old, and I want to make sure that we have the best education, so we are creating a pipeline for the jobs that are here in Silicon Valley. I also want to make sure that our children, as they graduate from high school, that they have first priority into the universities and the colleges here in our valley. Out-of-state tuition should not be the priority for California. It should be our students. Thank you for this opportunity.
So for the remainder of the questions, many of them are 1 minute long. I will let you know when they are 2 minute long questions. And then what we'll do is we'll start with one of you, and then the second will respond, and then you will take the question first, the next question, because we're sharing the mic. So, first question, what led you to run for office your first time, and of your accomplishments as an elected official, what are you most proud of? Nora, start with you.
Thank you for that question. What led me to run for office is probably basically why a lot of you are involved in maybe a neighborhood association. It was important for me to make sure that our neighborhoods were safe. It was important for me to make sure that our roads were paved, and that the minute you walked out your front door, that the money that you were spending and taxpayer money, that it was being used in your community. Those are the reasons why I ran, and those are the reasons why I'm continuing to run and serve. It is important that you have a voice. I will work for you. I will not be beholden to any special interest. I never have. And that seems to be a problem for a lot of people. I will be your voice. I will continue to be bold. And I will continue to make sure that your priorities are represented in California. Thank you.
Well, when I first got involved in the community, I was with an organization like this, and I was asked by people, you're the one that's going to run for city council. And they decided to do that is because I've been advocating for parks, advocating for open space, good land use planning, advocating for the schools in the area, good police protection, equal service for our area. And people came to me and they said, well, you know all these issues. You've studied these issues. You've spent time and advocating before the city council, the county board of supervisors on these issues. And they came to me and they said, we want you to run. So I put my name up to run for city council. I was elected when I was 28 years old to the city council. I was the youngest city council member elected in the history of the city of San Jose. And people really have worked with me over the last several years, and I fulfilled a lot of those goals that I established when I was originally elected, so thank you.
And you'll take the next question, I'll just ask you from here. Oh no, did you respond? Yes, you did. Thank you. Okay. Who and which groups and PACs support your candidacy and are providing direct funding or independent funding for your campaign?
Well, I'm endorsed by the California Democratic Party, the Sierra Club, the Chamber of Commerce. I'm supported by a wide variety of labor organizations, the Firefighters Police, Central Labor Council. I'm supported by the League of Conservation Voters. I'm supported by the Democrats for Women Now, the Democratic Women's Organization, supported by Planned Parenthood. Many of those organizations have endorsed me. Mayor Liccardo has endorsed me. Governor Jerry Brown has endorsed me. John Chung, the state treasurer, has endorsed me. Betty Yee has endorsed me. The reason I have so many support is I work with all these people. I work with them in a collaborative way in solving these problems. And these groups have been the ones that have supported my candidacy. I have a wide spectrum of organizations and individuals supporting me, including our Republican opponent in the last primary. Thank you.
Thank you. And when I ran for assembly, I had pretty much a lot of the same endorsements. And when I decided that I was going to run, give the voters an opportunity to have two candidates to pick from. And that's what the voters wanted. They wanted an opportunity to see two people go to the top so that they could have an option of who were the two best candidates. No, I'm not being supported by a lot of the same people because they told me, it's not your time. Let Jim Beall retire and then you can run. But I don't think that's the way our government should work. Democracy doesn't work that way. It works with the opportunity for you to be able to determine who has your best interests. And I believe that I will be the independent voice that you need as we move forward in Sacramento. Thank you.
So the next question is, what is your position on Proposition 55, extending the income tax surcharge?
The income tax surcharge.
I don't know anything about that one, so.
I think it's the wealthy.
Oh, the wealthy one, yes, the wealthy. I think that we should continue to move forward on that one, and I support it. One of the things that as I was walking in the community, someone asked me, how do you feel about taxing the 1%? And, you know, that's kind of an interesting question when someone is part of that bracket. And I had to say to this individual, well, I'm supportive. And I said, but let me tell you why I'm supportive. And as I went down to my bullet points on why I was supportive, they said, that's fair. And they said to me, thank you for having the courage to be able to tell me your position, and maybe we're going to be different on that. And that's the type of leader I think you need. Someone that's not going to be afraid to stand up for what they believe and do the right thing for our community.
Well, I'm fully supportive of this. I think that in terms of the state budget, we will allocate this money out of this proposition, which will generate some $4 to $5 billion at least. We should allocate that to education. Education is my top budget priority. Education should be the state's interest, because investing in education now with the state right now floundering at 43rd out of 50 states is inappropriate level. California needs to raise the bar in terms of education, both at the K-12 and at the community college, career technical education, and the CSU and UC system. We have to open up more slots for students to go to college. Right now, that's happening for 20,000 slots due to the Senate, and we hope to continue that effort with this bill.
You can keep the mic. The next question is a 2-minute question. Would you support a modification to Proposition 13? And if so, what are your thoughts on possible changes?
Well, Proposition 13 has been in existence since 1978. And the proposition, the kinds of thing I would support changing in Proposition 13 are some issues that have to deal with the assessment of property and the determination of property ownership relative to commercial properties when the property exchanges. There's kind of a loophole in Proposition 13 for owners of property in terms of the exchange, in terms of one corporation buying a property owned by another corporation. The result basically is the reassessments do not occur like they do when you sell your home to another person. So as a result of that, homeowners are paying a higher burden of the property tax, and a lot of property owners that own commercial property that do this kind of exchange are escaping reassessments when the properties are exchanged. So I actually support Prop 13, but I like to see this change so that we can properly assess the value of some of these properties instead of having these loopholes that now exist in the system. I'm on the Government and Finance Committee of the state of California, and I believe a change in a lot of the taxation system should occur in general. We should close the loopholes. We should try to close the sales tax, the property tax, corporate income tax loopholes, and that way we can lower the taxes for everybody else, because some people are gaining a lot while other people's pay more. I think small businesses in particular are getting hit hard, whereas some of the larger businesses are getting much in terms of taxation deferrals, loopholes. You know, look at Donald Trump. Look what he's managed to do. You know, not paying those taxes. So we have to do some property tax reform, but also reforming other parts of the taxation system, in my opinion. It will lower taxes for everybody and let everybody pay their fair share. Thank you.
I actually am supportive of making sure that we do some reform around this Prop 13. And I think one of the things that we've been having a discussion in Sacramento since I've been there is what will we do and can we make these changes? I think the area that we need to focus on is commercial property. And I'm very much in support of changing that and making sure that we change that particular area in the tax code. And the other thing that I think we need to do is we need to be able to push the institution to not just keep pushing this down the road. And that means you need to have a strong voice that maybe isn't part of the old boys network and says, we've got to move things, we've got to change things, because the average person should not be paying and taking the burden for the commercial properties. So I am definitely supportive of that, and I will be at the forefront to make sure that we do this. But the reality is that when you're part of an infrastructure that continues to put the ball down the road and not take initiative to move it now, we're not going to have these changes. They've been talking about that before I got there, and it hasn't changed. So you need to have leaders that are going to use their voice and not just rubber stamp something because it's been the status quo for the past 15, 20 years. We need to make changes, and you need a strong voice.
Please keep the mic. So the next question is, will you support an oil and mineral extraction tax on private industry in California? Why or why not? 1 minute.
I would support that. On the contrary, what they're saying about me, I would support that. But I think that we need to be thoughtful on how we go about this. And I would also support us moving forward and taking this out to the people to be able to see what support we have. Because the reality is that if it's not a discussion that is coming from the people, it's not going to be moved in Sacramento. I've learned that unless we have the will of the people, things don't move the same way that we'd like them to move. And I'm not supportive of putting responsibilities on other commissions that are appointed by the governor. I think that the assembly members and the senators need to be accountable to you on the policies that we make happen in California.
I have cast votes in favor of the oil severance tax, specifically Assemblymember Tirico's bill when I was in the Assembly, and I've always cast votes in favor of that. As pointed out, I think in our last session with the Assemblymember candidates, we found that it's true. A lot of the other oil-producing states, in fact all of them, have some kind of extraction tax on oil. That gathers money, and a lot of states, you know where that goes? It goes to fund higher education. What a great idea if we can use some of that income coming from our natural resources to fund a higher education system that we really can be proud of in California. Higher education has floundered over the year because of the budget cuts and not having these kind of independent sources of revenue. And I have no problem with voting and actually passing a law. I'm not going to shift it over to the people to have some kind of ballot measure and use that as an excuse not to do my job in Sacramento. Thank you.
Okay, the next question. The local control funding formula has restored K-12 funding to at least pre-recession levels. However, many school districts have not restored the program, services, or class size cuts to previous levels. What legislation would you support or author, if any, that would ensure districts restore programs and small class sizes to pre-recession levels?
Yeah, I support, first of all, I'd go with the Prop 55. We got to pass that. It will add money to the budget so we can spend it on restoring it to pre-recession levels, the education level. And then we got to use that money wisely. We have to be very careful about using the money in a wise manner in terms of the local control funding formula. That formula is established to benefit school districts that have high proportion of low income or English learning and foster care youth. That formula has to be adjusted in some cases, like in the Evergreen area, they don't quite, I think they're within like 2% of meeting the funding formula. So I would adjust it to account for schools in Evergreen, for example, that pass that standard, but other schools don't. Those schools that are in that standard should be allowed to receive extra money in that formula, and I would work to adjust it with the school board and the other candidates that work on that issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it was very long, but it had to do with local control funding formula for K through 12 education, that now the funding is restored to pre-recession levels, but many of the school districts have not restored the programs or services or class size cuts to previous levels.
Thank you. So as I stated earlier, I'm a mother of an 8-year-old who actually is in a public school where some of these schools are underserved and English is the second language. And one of the things as we were crafting this, I was in the assembly and worked with the governor's office through with the Latino caucus, the Asian caucus, and other ethnic caucuses to make sure that as we were moving forward, that it was going to address the issues for schools that were low performing or where English language was a second language. This is an area that I actually worked very close with the governor's office on. I had personal conversations to make sure that we were addressing the issues so that the schools were successful and our children were going to be able to move forward. Let me share with you a personal story. So my son started when we had this, and I've gotten to see the kids that he goes to school with be able to excel from the beginning of the local control formula. So I will continue to move forward on supporting this.
You can keep that. And the next question is sort of related. What legislation would you support or propose regarding vocational training for those individuals who may not choose a college pathway?
You know, this is a great question. And one of the things that we continue to look at in this valley, we live in one of the most expensive areas in California. And as someone that went to Eastside Union High School District schools, there were a lot of my counterparts that didn't want to go to college. And so as I moved forward in working with my husband, who was head of the building trades at that time, we worked on programs that would actually be implemented at some of our high schools to give young individuals the opportunity to go through a vocational program, whether it was being able to take wood shop, whether it was being able to figure out how they can be on a path to the construction industry. And as a policymaker at that time, to be able to be at the table and give implementation ideas on where we needed to go, that is the type of person I will continue to be in Sacramento.
I was a strong member of the Vocational Ed Caucus working for the $200 million 2 years ago we put in the budget for vocational ed programs in California, and that started the wheel turning. We also worked hard, and I led the effort. I led the effort to get the Metropolitan Adult Education their $30 million vocational ed grant that they got last year. They singled me out as the champion for that program. That would give vocational ed programs a real shot in the arm in this area. And we really need to have vocational ed achieve a single independent source of revenue rather than have to depend on the school districts. If you look at the financing, they have to go to each college or each high school district to get their money to operate. And we should have an independent source of revenue for our vocational ed programs. Thank you.
So switching gears to land use questions now. Do you support the goals of the local agency formation commissions to encourage orderly city boundaries, discourage urban sprawl, and preserve agricultural and open space lands? And if so, how would you propose to strengthen the effectiveness of LAFCO?
Well, I'm a land use planner. Before I was elected, at least, that's a long time ago. So I'm a guy that went to school, went to urban planning school, became a planner, worked in Los Gatos and Santa Cruz, and then became a member of the Planning Commission in San Jose when I was 24 years old. So I know a lot about planning in San Jose, and I was for the Green Line. I think LAFCO should have a strong adherence to the Green Line around San Jose and Santa Clara County. That was approved by the voters, by the Board of Supervisors, putting that measure on the ballot when I was a member of the Board of Supervisors. I supported no hillside development policy. We should not have policies that allow sprawl, and that's one of the major reasons why I ran for office in the first place. And I've been supported by the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters for my firm stands for the environment on land use controls in the state of California. And I'm very knowledgeable about those issues. Thank you.
So my opponent, yes, he has been serving for 37 years, so I don't have those years on me. But what I do have is the fact that I have the experience. I served on the local government for 10 years, and serving in a big city where you have almost 1 million people, you get a lot of land use issues that come before you. I am very supportive of local control. I think that the state should not put the burden on tying the hands of local councils on what they should be doing. But having said that, I am very supportive of making sure that we don't build in our hills and our open space. It is important that we continue to preserve that. I mean, the beauty about living where we're at right now, and especially where you're at, you probably see live animals, creatures that come to you by your home. The reality is that we have to be able to make sure that we're creating the open space here. Thank you, that went by really fast.
I know, 1 minute isn't very long.
Okay, the next question, yes. What can the state do to mitigate NIMBYs, or not in my backyard, and get more housing of all affordability levels built?
So the one way that I think we do it without imposing certain policies on local government. I just got a bill signed by the governor a couple days ago. And it is a bill that is actually a pilot program for the city of San Jose. I could not wait for the rest of my colleagues in the assembly to say, yes, let's think about how we address the homeless issue. So what this bill would actually do, and it passed, what it would actually do, it was give local government, the city of San Jose, the ability, as soon as they decided that there was a homeless emergency, that they could actually implement building affordable housing for homeless individuals. And what it would do is it would remove all the red tape and all the regulations that will prevent them from moving that. The city of San Jose has $103 million in the pipeline to build 800 affordable housing units. It would tie an individual to a unit, and the project would actually take no more than 5 years. And that's going to start January 1st.
I have a way of doing things, and that's to go out into the community and talk about issues so that you talk to people early when you talk about land use decisions. You don't wait until it seems like it's going to be railroaded through, because that's not the appropriate way of doing that. If you're a good elected official, you spend time going out into the community and talking to people before and early as possible to deal with issues like NIMBY, because you want people to honestly look at their neighborhood and say, how can we have the quality of life for our community? How can all people in our community be included in the quality of life decisions? And when they do that, I think that breaks the barriers in a lot of cases, and we have more intelligent discussions about land use decisions. So that's the style that I had when I was a city council. And I still do that when I have my community coffees and other kinds of activities. NIMBYism is a problem. It's a confrontational environment. We have to work to eliminate the confrontational environment.
So you talked about railroading decisions. What can the state do to improve our transportation infrastructure?
Well, this is the area I'm working on right now. We have a special session. The legislature will adjourn that the end of November. And we're working very hard right now to come up with some answers on financing transportation. So I'm working on finding ways of financing fairly transportation, assuming also that every area in the state gets its fair share. That's very important, that the allocations of money go back to the community so that you can build programs like BART to San Jose. This last year we were very happy to lead the effort to get $20 million for the BART to San Jose from Berryessa into downtown. They're depending on us at the state to come up with about $800 million for the BART project, as well as other transit projects such as the light rail extension to East Ridge and other improvements to help our transportation system. So when you elect somebody for this job, you need to have somebody that can work and achieve those financial goals that you have for the match that's needed. And I'm the person clearly that's superior in this area. I have worked and have brought money into this area for Highway 87, Highway 85, BART, Highway 101, all these other projects over the years. I know how to get the money and bring home the bacon, even though I'm a vegetarian. So this is an area I have a history of producing for this area hundreds of millions and perhaps billions of dollars in project revenues. And I will continue to do that now that I've achieved the role of the leader in the Senate on transportation. So now that I'm a leader in transportation and working on that, working hard, I will be able to produce money for BART. We need to come up with about $800 million, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to bring home the bacon. Thank you.
Nora, you have up to 2 minutes. So
Okay, thank you.
So let me tell you what the reality is about my opponent's proposal. It is sitting in Sacramento right now. And the reality is the two chairs in transportation couldn't get majority in my house, the assembly, to be able to agree with that. My colleagues were not supportive of a 17 cents tax on a gallon of gas. They would not support that because their constituents would not support it. They're not as supportive of a lot of other things. They're not supportive of $165 for a surcharge on electric vehicles. The reality is you can come up with a plan and say you have a plan. But if you can't get the majority of the electeds to support it across the state of California, it's not going to go anywhere. So the reality is we have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how do you balance a proposal that you can get out of Sacramento and get off of the floor that will benefit all Californians, not just one particular population. And so moving forward, if I get the opportunity to be on transportation, I will work very closely with my colleagues to make sure that we come to an agreement on a proposal around transportation that works for all Californians and every segment of California. It is important that we address this issue because we have a real infrastructure problem. The number one issue that I'm hearing in other parts of this district is that transportation, the roads and the highways, are not meeting their needs. My opponent talks about that he's an expert on it, but clearly
If that's the number one issue that I'm hearing as I'm walking, there seems to be a disconnect. And I will make sure that I close that disconnect.
Okay, one more question before closing statements.
Jen.
You first,
Jen.
Nora. And this one is a 1-minute question. What are your thoughts on cap and trade, and what else could the state do to address climate change?
Well, I think this is one area that we probably agree with most. But I think, as I stated earlier, climate change is real. And the reality, as we continue to pass, SB 32, SB 350, the reality is those are great policies that we pass. But I think when we think about who's got to be accountable and who should be making the decisions on what that policy looks like, it should be assembly members and senators. It shouldn't be in the hands of the Air Resource Board. They can come up with a plan, that's great, but it should be the assembly and the senators that actually are reviewing that plan and determining whether we move forward. You elected us to be accountable for what we're doing here in California. So we shouldn't give that responsibility to a board that is appointed by the governor. And that's one reason why a lot of my colleagues were having a problem with some of the language, is because it actually puts the responsibility, it takes it out of our hands and gives it to someone else. It is our responsibility to be accountable to you.
I think the cap and trade program is very important to California. What it does is it taxes pollution and takes revenue from that through a auction proceeds. They sell pollution credits. And then the pollution credits are used to build transportation, build pollution eliminating projects. The projects have to eliminate pollution. I'll give you an example, the electrification of Caltrain. Very important to this valley in terms of getting traffic off Highway 101. Electrification of Caltrain, one engine removes 3,500 tons of air pollutions a year, 3,500. The BART project will be funded by cap and trade programs. It's kind of interesting that we have problems with the cap and trade program that we can work out without voting against all the bills on cap and trade and extension of cap and trade. We should work out those problems if there's a problem with the Air Board. But you have to realize the bottom line is the money goes to projects like BART. It will fund the extension of BART into downtown San Jose. We need that money, so we have to have the cap and trade program succeed.
So now we have 2 minutes for closing statements. Go ahead and take it away, Jen.
First, I want to thank you for allowing me to attend your meeting. It's very important that we all consider who is going to be our representative for the Senate. The Senate district is a huge district. It represents 980,000 people. And I represent all the people. I spend a lot of time going out, having neighborhood coffees, going out and meeting people, having town hall forums, having cash for college meetings at all the high schools, going out and talking to parents, doing that kind of coalition building and meeting with people. To do that is making me a better legislator, to working hard on the 10 committees that I'm on and the 2 that I chair makes me work hard. I've been a hard-working member, and that's why all my colleagues support me. And I think that I've received the endorsement of those people because of my hard work. I've been called the conscience of the Senate because of my stand for mental health and substance abuse, and working especially for children with disabilities. I'm the main advocate for those groups. If it wasn't for the work that we did as a group, we would have had the $300 million not added to programs for developmentally disabled. 400 homes closed last year for the developmentally disabled because of inadequate funding. I championed those people. Nobody else would stand up for them. I put my foot down, even when the governor didn't support it. We finally got him to support it. I also champion people that need help in terms of foster care. I've been a champion, and my body of work in legislation for foster kids is considered to be the outstanding foster care advocate in the legislature, as well as the mental health. This bill we are succeeding to passing this year increased the mental health programs in education in schools. Don't you think kids should have counseling in the schools so they can get through schools without having problems? So those are some reasons to support me. I'm a hardworking person, and I hope you can endorse me and cast your vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you all for staying out here till almost 9:15. I know it's been a long evening, but I think this is an important election. And I think that as you move forward, look at the two candidates. Yes, we're both Democrats, but one of us is also for small business and making sure that small businesses continue to thrive in California. One of us is also going to push the envelope when we're trying to put more money into crime, when individuals are incarcerated, and one of us is going to push to say we need to be putting money up front to make sure that our kids are not going down that path. The other thing that I've been a big voice, we talk about affordable housing. I actually sat with my colleagues this past year, and we went to the governor and pushed him to put $1 billion for affordable housing. And in that conversation, I had to educate the rest of California to say affordable housing in Central Valley and in other parts of California is very different from affordable housing in Silicon Valley. I've also been a big advocate for women's issues, and I've been criticized for that. But why shouldn't women be paid equal to what a man makes? Think about it. Right now, women make 79 cents to the $1 a man makes. And if you're a woman of color, it goes down even more. African American women, 63 cents. Latinas, 54 cents. And I'm going to continue to push the envelope to make sure that women are getting their fair share of services here in California. The other area that I've been tremendously at the forefront is public safety. I had the opportunity to chair that. The budget, 1 year, made sure that we got $50 million for infrastructure for human trafficking. We are the capital of human trafficking. That's got to change. So I made sure, it didn't take me a long time to make sure that happened. Look at each of us very differently, because we are very differently. Thank you.
All right, please give it a warm